Eddie, please.
Okay, so my name's Dan. I'm sitting here with Mr. Eddie Kuhlman, who is running for commissioner of the mighty town of Poolesville. And we're going to ask you some very just direct questions. Everybody's getting the same questions. Everybody's going to have basically the same amount of time, and we'll kind of go from there. If you need to stop or anything like that, just let me know. So the first question is really straightforward. Tell me briefly about your connection to the town. How long have you been here? Do you have any kids that currently go to the schools?
My family and I have lived here for 40 years. I've served as a commissioner for 16 years total, 12 years as the president of the commission. I did 3 or 4 years on the planning commission as the commissioner representative. Been president of the chamber 2 years, treasurer 2 years, member of the board for quite a few years. Presently, all of my 3 children are grown and married and raising families. They all 3 went through elementary and high school. Didn't have the middle school then. And my 2 grandchildren that live in town are being homeschooled. And I got my oldest granddaughter who's physically disabled, lives with my wife and I, and she's attending Hood in her 3rd year.
Okay. The next question is just, are you currently involved in any actual groups within the town, commissioner groups, volunteer groups, any of that type of stuff?
No.
Okay.
Well, wait a minute. I did serve on 2 committees for the town manager search.
Okay. Perfect.
Yeah, I was part of that.
So you were involved with the town manager search that happened over the last couple of years?
Yeah, the fiasco.
Fair enough. Of the current crop of commissioners that are currently sitting, who do you feel you personally best align with?
Well, Jim and I have a lot of years of history serving together, and we didn't always agree 100%, but we got along very well. We're good friends. I'm gonna speak my piece, and he did too. Jeff Eck I've known for quite a few years. He seems like a very reasonable guy. Ed Reed has really impressed me, that would be somebody to work with. Mr. Radigan, I don't know. I've never spoke to him.
Okay.
And of course, Wade Yost, I was responsible for him being hired for his position. And Wade and I go back many, many years. And he's a good guy to work with.
Next question involves, matter of fact, since we are sitting here in the Commons, the street right behind us, what are your opinions of some of the proposed changes to the streetscape here on Fisher, as well as the new modifications and money that will be getting spent on the skate park itself?
Well, I don't know how much time you're giving me to answer. This is a pretty long question to answer. First off, Whalen Commons, I used to work for Neil Whalen, and he called me one day and said, I want to get rid of that ground. What can I do? Because I can't build anything on it that's going to make me money. So he and I talked for a while, and he deeded it to the town for free, but there's a caveat in the deal that if something happens on this property that is not town related, like a business goes up or whatever, we got to pay them an accelerated rate. But Neil's unfortunately not with us anymore, but his son is. Where the skate park is, the Parks Board wanted a skate park, and Jim Brown and Link Hoeing were definitely supporters of that at the time. And they came to me and asked me where I stood, and I said, yeah, I don't know that I'm in favor of it, but I'll listen to what you all have. So they put together a proposal and brought it forward. It went through a lot of process, public hearings and whatnot, and I eventually voted for it. The Parks Board wanted to put it in one of the parks down in the residential area, and I said no. I went to, what was her name? Anyway, the ladies that had inherited the property where the skate park is, and it was John England's, cut it, sat down, negotiated a deal with them because it was commercially zoned. So we bought the property. We had at that time Senator Rob Garagiola got us, I believe, 80 or 90% of the money grants to build it, and then the rest of it has just snowballed, the dog park and whatnot. So I believe that, that skateboarding was a big thing back then. I don't know how big it is now, but I thought the kids deserved a chance. All it would take is a bulldozer to get rid of it.
Fair enough. A few years ago, there was talk about the Chevy Chase market that was closing and was supposedly coming to the town of Poolesville, and we're going to open here in the town of Poolesville. And fast forward, didn't show up. What would you do, or how would you move about getting either a small mom and pop market or a regular grocery chain like an Aldi to open something in the town?
Well, being 30 years in real estate business and doing mostly commercial and land, which I'm retired from now, I don't have a real estate license at all anymore. At that time, I did some searching when Roy first, in fact, as president of commissioners, I visited Roy by himself at least 5 times, and with Lynn in the meeting also twice, asking, was there something the town could do to help you stay? And Roy his final answer was, well, 2 answers that made a lot of sense. He said, Eddie, here's the receipts from the last year of being in the old store. My average sales was $147.50. This past year in the new location, my average sale is $14 and something. He said, they're using me as a 7-Eleven. And he said, I can't handle it. At that particular time, there's a small mom and pop that have 2 or 3 locations in Maryland, but not in Montgomery County, that I talked to, and they expressed some interest in coming here. But unfortunately, it never worked out. I would love to have a grocery store here in town. I honestly don't, not that I'm slamming anybody, but I don't think an Aldi's or Food Lion, a lower end type, would work here, because I don't think the people would support it. But it'd be nice to have some type of grocery here. And if elected, I would work very hard to try to find something to make it happen.
Well, to kind of piggyback then on that question, considering currently that there really aren't any food options here, since Poolesville is kind of a food desert, the question is very simple. What would you do to get the county to agree to run buses on the weekends currently for people that need to get down county and be able to go grocery shopping or do other things down county, since currently there is no options for basically grocery shopping here, and not everybody has a car. So how would you work with the county to get them, or force them as best as possible, to send buses up here even on the weekends?
Well, I was part of the ones that was introduced and started our conversations with the county council to get the bus up here to begin with. And then when they wanted to reduce the service, because they have a thing called platform hours, and they said the platform hours weren't good enough. And I said, yeah, but you put us in the middle of the ag reserve, which I love because I'm an ex-farmer, and it's kind of hard to compare us to Germantown and Rockville. We need a different look at it. So they brought the bus service back. I honestly would be very willing to go down and meet with council members. I know some of them very well. It's going to have to see who gets elected here in the next few weeks down there, but some of the ones that are still there, I know them right well because they all served in municipal government.
Fair enough. Next question kind of goes along with these previous two. How do you help families that are in town that are not families that have household incomes that are 100,000 plus be able to afford food that is something better than fast food and not as expensive as the restaurants that we currently have that are slightly pricey? Not every family of 4 or 5 in this town can afford a restaurant in this town at $50 or $60 a clip for a meal. So how do you help those folks?
I mean, I honestly don't know, other than trying to put them with people in the state and the county that can give them the assistance. If we are lucky enough to get this community center built up at the school, at the high school, hopefully there'll be somebody staffed up there once in a while that can help these people. You've caught me cold with that one. I really have never given it any thought.
Fair enough. Well, something to think about.
It is.
How would you help market the town better to either get more people to physically move to the town as the town needs growth, or how would you market the town towards some of the events at like the Muldoon Farm or the Polo Grounds to get those people, when they're coming in on weekends, to actually come and shop within the town limits, even if it's just to buy a cup of coffee at a McDonald's or eat a meal at Locals?
Well, in past years, the commissioners did try to engage with the Chamber of Commerce, putting signs out there on 109 when Muldoon was having an event to direct them and steer them to town. I believe there was a billboard made at one time that said what was available in the town and posted out there. What has happened in the past 10 years, I really don't know, because I don't understand the game of polo. I don't go watch. As far as getting more people here to buy homes, you got to build some homes for them to buy. As far as bringing in more business, if these townhouses get built in front of CVS, as they're now working through, there's not a whole lot of area to build anything. And if I remember correctly, there was a lot of people who were opposed to Dollar General coming to town, but I see a lot of people in there shopping, and I know the owner of one of our local businesses caught me in his store and told me he needed to get me reelected. And I said, for what? He said, well, you would have stopped Tractor Supply from coming to town. It's going to put me out of business. And I said, well, number one, I couldn't stop it. As long as they agree to meet the rules and the laws of the town and comport to our regulations, they're welcome. And in my opinion, it wasn't going to put him out of business. He might have to adjust his business tactics, but it's 2 different levels of service. And I also told him it's hard for you to get me reelected. You don't live in town.
Fair enough. Changing it up a little bit. So, if we were to pick up the phone and call a former employer of yours, or in reality, former employees of yours, and we would ask them, tell me one area where Eddie has a chance for a room for improvement, what would they tell me?
Well, it'd be kind of hard because I've been self-employed for probably 50 years.
So what would your employees say?
Well, currently, I don't call it a job, but right now I do work occasionally at Hilton's Funeral Home on directing traffic, parking cars. I try to be very courteous to everybody. It's always yes ma'am, no ma'am, yes sir, no sir. In my blue collar jobs, that's a different story. You could let your hair down. I believe in being courteous to people. I've taught my children to say yes sir, no sir, yes ma'am, and no ma'am. Be courteous. I try to respect other people for everything they're worth. And I definitely believe in to do unto those that do unto you. I've always maintained in town hall, I've had to serve with a couple commissioners that could get temperamental or obtuse, and they're no fun people to serve with that way. I believed, especially the 12 years I was president of commissioners, and running an open dialect, a transparent government. It's okay not to agree, but let's agree like ladies and gentlemen and move forward. All the decisions don't have to be 5-0, and you can't win every vote.
Fair enough. So if you were to look in the mirror today and say to yourself, I would like to improve on this personally over the next 2 or 3 years, what would you tell yourself?
What, town or me?
You.
Oh.
If you wanted to improve yourself over the next 2 to 3 years, what would you tell yourself that you need to work on?
Well, I've got a good wife who has found the patience and the tolerance to put up with me. It'll be 52 years next weekend. I would like to be a better man to her. She deserves it. I like to be able to think not more out of the box, but come up with some better ideas. There's a lot of things I would like to see happen in town. That's all.
Fair enough. Thank you. Beyond the current issues such as water, sewage, what do you feel are the biggest issues that may not be currently getting talked about in the town that you feel need to be worked on or you need to see improvement of?
Well, I mean, I know the treatment plant's getting ready to undergo a modification again, and that will help the quality of the stream, and probably end up costing the users some more money in bills. But I understand it's mostly grant money going to be used. The one thing that has always bothered me is the lack of involvement by a lot of people with what goes on in town. But then when a decision is made, then all of a sudden they come out and start screaming about it. And you would think today, with all of this modern technology and everything, that everybody would be kept to date and understand what's going on. For a prime example, 20 years ago or so, I had a house listed in town, and a couple came and agreed to buy it with another agent, and we're sitting at settlement, and it was their first home purchase. And the lady asked me, says, "Where do you go buy your groceries?" I said, "Selby's." "What's Selby's?" I said, "It's the local grocery store." You're making your major purchase in your life, and you don't even know nothing about the town? It just amazes me that, and it was a little bit different years ago because you had the Gazette to put out a weekly newspaper. You had the Bulletin that put out his weekly rag. Randy, I think they're doing a very good job, but it'd be nice if it was more often.
Fair enough. Last question is probably one of the bigger ones. The Fair Access Committee has been around a long time. With the pending election, Jim Brown could potentially lose his seat if he is not to be reelected. What would you do to make sure his efforts, his work, along with the other current members of the Fair Access Committee continue? Would you allow him to still be part of it if he was willing to be part of the Fair Access Committee?
Most definitely. I mean, Jim's poured his heart and soul into this thing, and I applaud him for it. Jim's always been ready to roll up his sleeves, as I am, to do whatever needs to be done. To my knowledge, there's no set number of participants that can be a part of this thing, and the more the better.
Fair enough. Well, Mr. Kuhlman, that pretty much sums up all the questions. I appreciate you taking the time to sit down and have a conversation today. As I told you prior to us starting this, everybody's interviews will get released together once they're all completed. And all I can say is I wish you the best of luck.
Well, thank you, sir.
And thank you again for the time.
And thank you for doing this.
I'm trying my part. I'm trying my part.